Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our afternoon session this afternoon, which is capitalizing on experiential travel. And we're going to be focusing on China and India, which are perceived to be the mega source markets of the future. Thank you very much for joining us here this afternoon. Is everyone enjoying ATM so far? You're all getting something out of it. That's great. We have this afternoon a distinguished group of panelists who are here to talk about these two very significant mega markets, or that's what they're perceived to be. So we're going to drill down into those two markets just to see what those markets do have for us as we move into the future of what really is a changing environment in the travel market for this region, and perhaps a little bit beyond the region to the rest of the GCC and the Middle East. Now, as the markets of the broader Middle East are now reassessing their future economies, with the UAE and especially Dubai working towards a more diverse and more sustainable non-oil-based economy, the emphasis now is on both manufacturing and also the service industry, and that's been abundantly clear over the past couple of years. Now, we're all aware that the oil revenues have spiked just a little bit recently, which has really helped a little bit in terms of the whole economy feeling a lot better since the recession. But we can't rest on those laurels at all. What we really need to do is to have a look at the alternatives after the oil economy. That's what the government is doing, that's what they're trying to do, and that's what some of the initiatives which they're putting in place are leading towards. So what is it that we have to do to address both that broad economy and also bolster our own businesses? Well, recently the DTCM, or Dubai Tourism as it's now known, has embarked on a series of experiential promotions encouraging people to visit the Emirate. Some examples include medical tourism, which most of you might know about, but last year we saw the launch of their culinary initiative, encouraging visitors to come and experience the taste of Dubai, and that's just to name a couple. So what other experiential initiatives do we think that we can develop to attract the right people to come to our shores? Now, out of these initiatives were born a much more robust approach to experiential travel promotion. But what now? What's next? Well, to discuss what's next, our distinguished panelists here are Filippo Sona. He's Director and Head of Hotels MENA for Colliers, and Filippo has delivered a report for this session, and from his report and the findings of that report that many of the questions of this session are taken. We also need to welcome, please, to the stage Aziz Naran. He's Associate Vice President of Development for Taj Hotels, Resorts and Palaces. Deborah Duga, Managing Director of Duke's Collection. They've just opened a new property on the Palm. And David Thompson, the Chief Operating Officer of JA Resorts and Hotels. Let's start by giving them a nice round of applause and welcome them to our session today. Oh, come on. Thank you. Well, first of all, not to give a presentation of his report because that's available for all of you to take home a little bit later. But I'd like to ask, first of all, Filippo to perhaps expand a little bit on the part of his report which explains how Dubai and the UAE, and in fact the broader GCC, embrace and capitalize on the initiatives to bolster tourism from both India and China. And even more, look at the competitive offerings that we have on the table at the moment and how we can enhance the offerings that we have to address this new market. If you look at promotions abroad, the competitors to Dubai, they're not terribly obvious, I suppose, but they do include places like Spain's Algarve, Sardinia, Crete, and various costas. Also, the Indian Ocean destinations, Thailand, and even the Italian lakes are really being promoted extensively, globally. So are we going to miss out on having the right sort of promotions, and what is it that we can do in tandem with the government to be able to promote our products into the future? Filippo, perhaps you could expand a little bit on that.
Yeah.
In other words, what can Dubai offer?
To answer that question, the straight answer will be there needs to be more cooperation between and liaison between public sector and private sector. And this time is quite challenging because it's probably the first country that I would say that the private sector needs to do slightly more than the public sector is doing. Normally, it is very easy to criticize the public sector, but particularly in Dubai, we have a very proactive, public sector, naming DTCM, very proactive and very forward thinking. So I think the private sector has got quite a lot to catch up with. And, but to fully answer that question is to realize the potential of these two markets and looking at numbers and think very carefully. We advise clients day in and day out in the GCC and Africa, but when we're talking about India and China, you can see almost the reaction of people. Oof, one is 2 billion, the other is 1.5 million. Yes, but in China, only 81 million people have a passport, and in India, only 65 million. So suddenly you're going from 2 billion to 81 million. And if you take the UK with 60 odd million, 97% of the population has a passport. So who do you go after? See, very important when we're looking at numbers, we need to drill down into what is the real opportunity. So first of all, what can be done is to learn about what is the real potential. Second thing is understanding their culture and what can we do more, which translates into what can Dubai can do more, is promoting more the Emirati culture in their own country. Get them excited to come over here, not just about Burj Khalifa, about the hospitality, about the local food, and all the other good things that they're doing in here, because it is an education process. And particularly the Chinese market, one of the areas needs to be focused is communications. There is a massive language barrier, and but that can be overcome by simply having Mandarin speaking staff. Also, when you're talking about Chinese, it's not like saying, oh, it's a Chinese. China, like any country in the world, has regions, and each region has cultures, food, or gastronomy. So we need to learn about also the provinces. That's another good thing. So is learning more about them. Last but not least, which cascade unfortunately again onto the private sector, is India and China are what I would define two of the best investor profile worldwide. They're the best investor, plenty of cash, savvy, shrewd, fast. But they are very price sensitive when they become travelers. So from a private sector point of view, you need to learn about your total revenue per available room. So your break-even average room rate or pricing is going to be totally different if you're targeting people from more different economies, like North America, UK, Spain, and so forth. So what I'm trying to say is that, and as you can see, very small example, or India. Indian people are hugely attracted by the value for money, translating to all-inclusive. At the moment, Ras Al Khaimah is leading the all-inclusive market. With Marjan Island doing extremely well, fantastically well. But Dubai is still very hesitant. Some of the Dubai hotels, not Dubai as a whole, still hesitant in embracing this concept because they think, oh, I don't want to do like Sharm el Sheikh, I don't want to do like Hurghada. Correct. But that's why go back to the basic of hospitality management, your break-even pricing, your cost built up, cost allocations, that's what it's all about. As simple as that. No rocket science. So, in essence, what can Dubai do more is, and unfortunately this time, I do work a lot with the private sector. I think my recommendation to any public sector authority is create more educational programs for the private sector in order that they are aligned to what you do. So if you're going to invest a lot of money going to China or India, promoting the UAE, Dubai, or so forth, make sure that the private sector, so the hoteliers, align themselves with what you're going to do. So in order that at operational level, they can maximize their return on investment. Easy with all inclusive, easy with Mandarin speaking staff, easy about knowing what you have to do. The Chinese government is called Welcome Chinese Certification, bronze, silver, and gold. In Abu Dhabi, 20 hotels have the certification. In Dubai, 0. Dubai get the most Chinese visitors with 540,000 in 2016. It will continue to have success to that, but it's how much you want to capitalize on this. Hence the reason, capitalize on experiential travel. How much money do you want to get out of this market? This is very, very important. So as you can see, very small things that eventually make a very big difference for the whole industry.
Thanks very much indeed, Filippo. If you haven't had a chance yet to see Filippo's report, I encourage you to do so. We can provide a copy for you later. And if you're wondering why I'm not standing up there are 2 reasons. One, I really want you to focus on the panelists, not me. But secondly, I'd like to open this up throughout the next 50 minutes or so. Rather than be dictated to, I'd like you to join in with your experiences as we drill down not just about India and China, but about the whole experiential way that Dubai is going about attracting its travel and tourism markets into the country. Now, Filippo's touched on these 2 big markets, but I have some statistics from the DTCM which simply says that there has indeed been an increase in Indian travellers of up to 30% over the past 12 months. But amazingly, there's been an increase of some 60% of Chinese travellers coming to the UAE and to the broader GCC. And that's just in the last 12 months. So that really is a significant increase in the number of people travelling. But percentages can be misleading slightly, can't they? 60% based on the previous figures. They didn't release how many in terms of numbers. Now, you mentioned, Filippo, that not all of the Chinese carry passports. And also the socio-economic groups of people that we want to attract here, how many of those Chinese and Indian visitors fit the profile of so many diverse hotels in the UAE. Let me ask Deborah first of all, because you're just about to open, if you haven't already, a new hotel on the Palm. So as a new hotel, where is your target market? And are you looking at China and India as being a significant contributor to your RevPAR?
Yeah, we've just opened a new hotel on the Palm, Duke's Dubai. It's a sister hotel to our property in London. We operate Duke's Hotel in Mayfair, which is a boutique hotel, 90 bedrooms, 5-star leading hotel of London's, won multiple awards. We decided to actually break out and we came to Dubai. We realized the market may be a little bit different, but if you look at the market, it's the same, really. The leisure market, in Dubai, just looking at general, where is the traffic coming from? Who is coming to Dubai? You have to work the market. It doesn't just come to you, yourself. It's not just a general feel at the hotel and the gates open. You have to work the market. And just a little couple of things, and there's what we have done at Duke's, and I've implemented, is when I was recruiting the team at Duke's, I really widened up the gates to where can I bring our team in for. We could have brought in, a cheaper workforce and actually, concentrated only on a couple of areas, but I decided to open the gates, and we've got around about 38 different nationalities at the hotel, and a lot of them, that do come from India, China, but they come from the UK, they come from Spain, they come from Germany, all over, absolutely all over. And I think what you have to do is, when you're opening a hotel, any new product, you have to think about where the customer's coming from and how can we service this customer. What can we do to actually make their experience better? I'm obviously from the UK, and the amount of times that I go somewhere and I say, do you speak English? It frustrates me myself that I ask those questions. But if you've actually got staff within the actual hotel that can actually speak the majority of languages where your clients are coming from, that's one tick. It's a big tick. The second thing is actually food. Looking at when you're looking at actually targeting in particular markets, what do those people like to eat? let's look at the chef, let's look at the kitchens, and let's look at the opportunities that we can look at with the kitchens and with our menus in our different areas. Also, actually, you know, being proactive and looking at the sales opportunities, working with the tourism areas as well, not just going out on your own, but working with the tourism side of it, bringing in educational visits into the area so that they can see your property. There's always a challenge. I believe it doesn't matter whether we've just opened a hotel in Dubai or whether it had been in China. At the end of the day, you've got to look at the cultures within the actual area that you've opened the hotel as well, to make sure that you can actually manage and work with both. I know, for example, the Chinese market, you know, it's really important to have someone who can speak the language. You know, we've been asked a lot of times that, and I made sure that when recruiting, you know, we didn't just have one person within our 600 staff that can do that. So we've got a very multicultural, bilingual team within the hotel.
Well, we're going to look at staffing and having the right staff and retaining those staff a little bit later in this session, because that's clearly a challenge across the board. I suppose a good example of multicultural staff is Emirates Airlines. When you get onto an aircraft, the chances are there are 16 or 17 different languages being spoken. But can we achieve that in our industry? Can we achieve that in the hotel?
Yeah.
And what are the challenges of finding the right people and also retaining them? We'll touch on that a little bit later. First of all, I'd like to ask Aziz Naran, who's Associate Vice President Development for Taj Hotels, Resorts and Palaces. Now, you have a diverse range of offerings in the market, so you can't really afford to be specific, can you? Or can you? How do you arrange your marketing to attract the people specifically from what is likely to be these new market destinations?
So, like you rightly pointed out, the Taj Group has a diverse range of offerings for the guests. We have historic palaces, which are real living palaces. These are not modern buildings with the word palace written on them, but buildings in which royalty has lived or continues to live even today. We have safari lodges, which are in tiger circuits where the Royal Bengal tiger is found. We have city hotels, and we have resorts in places like the Maldives, and another one coming up close to yours on the Palm, and many other parts of the world. But really, what ties all of these together is a very strong service philosophy, which we believe really differentiates us. And we call this Tajness, and we define it as the sum of experiences that draws its inspiration from the nobility of Indian heritage and tradition, which is about putting the guest first, which is about high quality food, which is about personalization, very high quality spa and wellness, about not just recognition, but also gearing your systems through, whether it is through CRM or through loyalty programs, so that what can otherwise be a very transactional check-in process converts into a pleasant interaction where from the moment the guest walks into your hotel, you're able to really not just take him to his room, but plan his outing, plan his food, plan his room, the kind of pillow they like, etc. So it's really about focusing on the details of the guest, having robust back-end systems that enable the associates at the front end to deliver that experience, and then to do that consistently, whether you are in a palace, whether you're in a city hotel, whether you're in a safari lodge. And that's what guests sort of see value in, feel a sense of joy about, and then they keep coming back to you, whichever format you may be operating in.
So you've started to address the whole customer journey from the time that customer books until they leave again and say goodbye and go home. That's what you're saying. That whole customer journey is in your remit. That's part of what you do. It's part of your purview.
Right.
I totally agree. I also, I totally agree, and I think a lot of people now, must concentrate on. There's some glorious hotels out there, some, amazing palaces and beautiful hotels. But at the end of the day, if we go back to hospitality, it's all about service. Service, attention to detail, and that guest, should arrive as a guest and leave as a friend. I believe that is true hospitality.
Let's hear from David Thompson now. He's the Chief Operating Officer at JA Resorts and Hotels. David, what sort of initiatives is your hotel group looking to embrace if you consider where the new market of Dubai is likely to be. We can't rest on our laurels anymore, can we? We can't just build it and they will come. That doesn't happen.
No, it's interesting what you were just saying. I mean, Filippo actually touched on it earlier, and he was actually talking about this whole idea of all-inclusive and not being available in Dubai. Obviously, we've been doing that up at JA Jebel Ali Golf Resort now for about 5 years, offering an all-inclusive option, which has been incredibly popular. And we believed at the time that it would actually only be focused on the UK market. But what's happened is that's now been embraced very much by the Indian market. We've had a lot of Chinese groups coming through on that. And so, I think food, as Deborah said earlier, food is a very, very, very important part of the equation. How you deliver that food, making sure that it's culturally acceptable. But it's not just in what, for instance, the Gujaratis, they have very, very specific vegetarian requirements. But if you actually present that vegetarian food alongside sort of meats and prawns, that's still not going to work. So again, they need that to be presented to them very differently, very separately. We interestingly had a group of Jain that came to stay with us from India, and they're a very specific religious sect out of India. They have very, very detailed they're not just vegetarians, but there can be nothing in the process that has potentially led to any kind of harm or death to anything at all. So making sure that we were able to look after them and feed them properly was very, very important. The whole setup of their room, how that had to be. So we've been doing this for many years now, and it's really selecting the right partner in the market that you're working in as well. So obviously our product isn't one size fits all. So we also have to make sure that we're selecting the right type of guests and talking to the right type of people in those individual markets. I mean, if you take one of our properties, we actually have, alongside our partners out of China, we've actually set up studios so that, in fact, they were talking about it on the last panel, that honeymoon couples will, before they've actually got married, go to various destinations to have their wedding photographs taken, or do that after the event. Now, we've actually got a couple of studios in some of our resorts where they can come along, they pick their wedding dress, they go out, they stand in romantic settings, we've got quite a lot of those, and they have their photograph taken, and this creates all part of the wedding album. And we're actually introducing a wedding chapel in one of our resorts as well to cater for that market specifically. So it is about language, it is about food, but it's about, as we've all said, it's about service delivery and how you actually treat them, and actually seeing these people as individuals have very specific needs and wants, and making sure you can deliver that, and not sort of doing a box ticking exercise where you say, well, we can deliver that because I've got a Mandarin speaking person sitting over here somewhere, but it's really engaging them and making sure that they appreciate that. I mean, it's quite interesting. We had someone who came to stay with us specifically to visit the parks, but they came from the Indian market, and our Indian representatives had worked very hard to bring them to us. They went to the resort, they stayed there for a few days. They were supposed to spend 1 day at the resort and 2 days at the park staying at the resort. They actually spent half an afternoon at the parks because we engaged them at the resort, and there were so many things that they could do which actually fit in with their cultural perspective of what they wanted for a holiday, that it had an opposite effect, and from our point of view, very pleasing effect. But it's this sort of thing, it really is being able to understand the market and engage them.
I didn't want to drill down too much on the wedding thing, but it is part of Filippo's report. And I just wanted to ask the question because I don't know the answer. But I do know the spectacular nature of weddings in India. But predominantly they're a massive family affair. So how much of that market can you actually tap into here in the UAE for Indian people who want to get married and have these massive affairs and transport all of that to the UAE? Wouldn't they rather just do it at home?
Well, we've actually, I mean, we have, because we have a property called JA Oasis Beach Tower, which some of you are familiar with. It's actually a hotel that's apartments, but we have in there very large 4 and 3 bedroom apartments. Now, both the Chinese and the Indian market are big family travelers, and they want to be able to, it doesn't matter how old the children are, they want to make sure that they're close by and, either in interconnecting rooms, but obviously the apartments work really well. And we've had huge weddings, particularly sort of Dubai being the focus of large expatriate families in the UK and in India who've actually met in Dubai. And we've had several hundred people staying with us at a time between our various properties for these sort of these weddings. And we've held weddings up to 2,000 out in Al Sakhra, where we have a very large desert environment, which is ideal for events and what have you. So bit of a plug there for Asahara, but no, it's really making sure that you've got, you have to be able to accommodate them, and they are huge events and go over for several days as well. So
we certainly don't mind the plugs, and for each of the hotel chains, plug away. It's absolutely fine, because what's really interesting about those plugs is to try to understand what those products are and how those products are addressing the marketplace. The question that leads on from that for me really is, are you going it alone? Is the government here doing enough, do you think, to be able to support these initiatives? They have come out through Department of Tourism, or DTCM as it used to be called, with various initiatives to try to help the industry. What more can we do as individuals or chains of individuals? What more can we do to engage with the government, perhaps bringing out initiatives together to actually go out and address these markets, rather than them doing it on their own initiatives and you as hoteliers doing it on your initiatives? Are there any programs that you'd like to see addressing some of the markets that we're keen to attract? I'll leave this open to the market as a whole. Filippo, you look as though you want to answer that.
Again, I'm going back what I said at the very beginning. We found ourselves in a market, particularly in Dubai, where you have a very proactive public sector. You have authority that provided visa on arrival for Chinese. Still not in place for the Indian community yet. But for the Chinese, it's visa on arrival. So it is one of the biggest obstacles of getting people into the market. And so I think as far as the public sector is concerned, they're doing absolutely everything, in my opinion, to allow the private sector to capitalize on this opportunity. So it is the private sector that needs to get off their chairs and go and get the business. But again, it is learning about their culture, how you get it. Communication is the biggest single, to the extent, if people been to China dealing with investors, there are companies that have balance sheets of billions of dollars. They're not the usual that you will think of. They cannot come out of China because they are afraid of the communication. And there are people that speak English, but they're not at the level. So when you're sitting in front of an organization, a simple solution would be just employ somebody that, maybe British or any other nationality, and speak Mandarin. So you think it's that simple, but we need to understand the cultural background of companies, or how they go processing things. So I've been 6 times to China last year alone, and try to understand the buying behavior, because this is very important, and this is what will unlock communication. WeChat is the biggest form of communication among everybody. I didn't have it on my phone, and I was relying on WhatsApp. It's WeChat in China, big time, massive. So I've learned to use WeChat too. And I've learned that Chinese people don't like the number 4. So if you put me in room 424, they will hate you forever, because it's a bad association. So if I was an hotelier, and I go very simply and practical, I'm not trying to be the smart guy, I will take my 8th floor and dedicate it to Chinese people and target the Chinese market. It is very simple. All Chinese people stay on the 8th floor. I make a lounge for them. Because we cannot tailor-made our product just for the Chinese. Dubai is a global city, it's for everybody. But you have corporations, hotel company, they run out of idea. They buy in each other, thinking you're going to dominate the world. Ladies and gentlemen, Booking.com spend $3 billion a year in marketing. $3 billion. That's far greater than any net operating profit of any hotel company in the world. Net operating profit, not turnover. Marriott turnover, I think, was $9 billion. These people spend $3 billion is one item in expense in marketing. You cannot fight them. How do you fight OTAs, which is not fighting, is understanding your consumer and become closer to your consumer, make them understand. So in India, there are 11 secondary social chats like WhatsApp, Facebook, and that, which have no big names. How many hotel companies is free to go on these sites? So, and we are thinking distribution system, Booking.com, Agoda, Expedia, they're not the only one. You can get close to your consumer just by using one thing which is free, is the brain. So long story short, is the private sector needs to be more proactive, less reactive, and complacent to the market we're sitting in.
Thank you, Filippo. Now let's look at the market that we're sitting in. As Filippo mentioned, the market's quite diverse. If we take our minds back to pre-2008, 2009, or in our case, 2010, which most of us lost our money a couple of years after because we didn't know the recession would really affect us here in the UAE, but it did. And since that time, we've seen RevPAR values fluctuate. In fact, they've yo-yoed over periods of time. Revenue per available room has changed dramatically. What's also changed dramatically is the type of hotels that we're now building. We might have hundreds of thousands of rooms in Dubai now, but they're vastly different from the rooms that we had in 2008, with 3-star hotels coming on stream over the last few years, offering a completely different product from the erstwhile 5-star hotels. Let's ask the panel what they think about the difference in the offerings of the 3-star to the 5-star hotel, and what offerings those hotels are making to our new market, because you've mentioned the socio-economic groups in those markets are not necessarily the 5-star hotel spenders, apart from perhaps the people who want lavish weddings. So how do we address a market from these two very important regions which may not be at that higher level? Have we got a product for them? Let's ask Deborah.
Well, the traveller is very different. Someone who is looking for a 3-star hotel is not looking for the experience of a 5-star hotel. A 3-star hotel, that there is a market for it, absolutely. But a 3-star hotel is someone who is coming to the hotel, wants a good bed, a clean bed, somewhere to stay, somewhere to leave all of their luggage, and not have necessarily the experience of a resort or of a luxury experience. Someone coming to a 5-star hotel is someone who's looking for that extra bit that they won't get at home, that luxury experience, to be looked after, to be welcomed at the door, to have their doors open for them, to have their turned back down at night, and to totally have that luxury experience. But asking myself as a hotelier, there is a market for both. There is a market where you have the younger generation who are coming into Dubai, and they can't afford the 5-star experience, but they want to actually come and experience a destination. And we have to open the gateway for everyone. We have to. And going back to Dubai Tourism, I have to say I think they do a fantastic job in actually promoting Dubai as a destination. I don't know anywhere else who does a better job than what they do. And going back to what Philippe says, it is up to the public sector to work with them. They give you plenty of opportunities to go out there and work with them, and we can't expect them to be the only ones that are actually producing. Someone who came to Dubai 5 years ago, and if they were to come back today, it's a different place. And I can assure you, if they come back in another 5 years' time, again, it'll be a different place. I mean, Sheikh Mohammed and, the team, they're just very visionary, but they don't just talk about it, they make it happen.
I was going to ask Aziz to comment on that, because do you see that as the same way? I mean, there are products for both, but are those products melding, or are they juxtaposed?
No, so I'll share a different experience from our own experience back home. The Taj Group has been known traditionally to known in the luxury space,
Yeah.
but about 10 years back, we inspired from the budget hotels of the Western chains. We started our own chain of budget hotels in India called Ginger Hotels. Nobody to pick your luggage and take you to your room, limited, no breakfast, very limited F&B, etc. And I have to say, the initial response to all that within India, it was targeted at a certain low sort of price point, it bombed. Because the idea of luxury is different at for different customers.
Yeah.
So while we may think luxury is about a turned down service, sense of space, etc., even someone coming from a small city in India for him, luxury is just the sense of being looked after. So what does that mean? There'll be some person who will attend to you when you walk up, someone to take your luggage, give simple but hot breakfast, have a little space to entertain someone. So a lot of Western operators, when they came to India about 5-7 years back, so their typical 2-star, 3-star brands, when they opened their hotels, they actually had to rejig their prototypes to include restaurants, to include a more sort of laborious check-in process, to have more F&B offerings. And I think that expectation of at least the Indian customer, whether it's a 2-star customer, 3-star customer, but they want to believe that they're being looked after by someone. And that has to get translated into products that come even in Dubai and products that are catering to the Indian market, irrespective of where they are. So it can't be the cookie cutter Western budget hotel that you open your doors to an Indian from. He's going to go out of it thinking it's too cold, it's like a machine.
I think that's very.
Well, I suppose that those cookie cutter hotels are quite different in Dubai. It's good to cut in there, Dave, because I was going to ask you. No, not at all. I was going to ask you about your initiatives in terms of looking at the products across the range of hotels and whether you see a melding of services to create an environment that the customer can enjoy.
No, we operate a range of hotels, but very extremely high end in the Maldives, through to 4-star hotels, a couple of 4-star hotels here in Dubai. And I think you'll find it's interesting. What Aziz says is exactly right. What's happened is the lower entry hotels, when they've come into this market, have actually had to raise the profile of how they operate and the number of associates per key, and because they cannot really get away with the sort of budget hotel model that you see in Europe, which works so well in Europe. Yeah. It just doesn't fly over here because people do come here and expecting a level of service, even from a 3 or 2-star hotel. And I think that is really where the government has played such an important role in Dubai. I mean, it has been to really drive the destination. The experience for many people is going to be coming to the destination and all the different things that this destination now has to offer. Once upon a time, it really was all about the hotels, not that long ago actually, and the incredible experience that people were going to have within the hotels. There was very little going on in the market outside those hotels. Now that's completely changed. You've still got these fantastic experiences when you're in hotels, but you've also got a tremendous market which is offering so many different things from a cultural perspective, entertainment, and F&B as well. And I think that means that it has allowed obviously the sort of the 3-star market to develop, because they don't have to deliver all that because the destination is doing it. Yeah. Well, they do have to deliver those still, as they probably found out to some extent to the cost, is they have to deliver a much higher level of service than they would expect anywhere else. And so I think that's really the beauty of Dubai. It really is very much an experience-driven market at whatever the level the hotels are at now.
Well, in terms of those products, then we're looking at the diverse products from the type of the hotel. We are a destination in any event. The government's doing a good job, you've all said, about attracting people to the destination. You've got products. Filippo's written a paper about some of those products and services. He thinks the private sector needs to get off its chair, I think he said, to create some more products along with the government to attract people to your destinations. There's lots of hoteliers in the room here today. Once you've got those products and once you've got that destination, you have to staff it. Now, whether those people speak Chinese or a number of the languages from India, is that enough? Can you retain staff? I know that the industry does have an issue with getting the right staff into the hotel and hospitality sector. How more difficult is it going to be to get the right staff if we're going after a whole new set of markets? Deborah?
It's all about looking after your team. They have a choice in Dubai now. People coming over here to work, they have a choice. We've got new hotels opening, every month almost.
So they do leave for an extra 50 dirhams, don't they?
Sorry?
They do leave for an extra 50 dirhams.
Absolutely.
So retention of staff is a real challenge.
Absolutely. You have to look after your staff. When we opened Duke's in Dubai, we done a whole recruitment drive. And, it's little things that make a difference. For example, the housing over here, looking after the staff and looking after their housing. There are a lot of your team are away from their family. So making sure that their environment that we're working in is a family environment, having a nice social calendar for them, making sure that they're with associates from, similar, I'm not saying the same, but you know, a lot of the times keeping people from similar countries together so they feel comfortable, making sure they've got buddies, so you know, people who are more senior to them, and that goes right up the line, right the way up to your HOD level, making sure that there's buddies within the business, and you know, just making sure that they feel at home and comfortable, and training, really, really key. We've all spoke about service, you know, and it's so key. And one of the things when people are looking at, you know, their finances, one of the things that can be cut, I'm not saying is always, but is training. But, you know, if you don't train your team and you don't look after your team, you cannot expect them to perform on the stage. They have got to actually, you know, be the heart and soul of your business. And one of my, you know, it's all about service. For me, I, you know, cannot really, you know, emphasize enough on how much I will say it's all about service. And I have a saying, and I say it to, you know, in all of our orientations, and I try to attend as many as I can do, but with all the team, whether it's a general manager of one of our hotels or one of our stewards in the kitchen, we all carry luggage. And they should all, every one of us are meant to, you know, to feel exactly the same and as one family.
That sounds great. It sounds wonderful. It sounds very textbook. And I'm sure that you do that in your hotels. David, how much of that can really be implemented in the market that we have at the moment, bearing in mind we're looking at 2 new markets?
No, I mean, it's essential. I think you're looking after your associates. If you don't, you know, the old saying, look after your associates and they'll look after your guests, it's 100% true. You know, and you know, one of the things one of our philosophies is no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And that applies across the board to you know, and the people you work with. If you don't engage them in what is going on, you know, we try and get our guys, if they're engaged with our guests and engaged with each other, then you know that's what creating a family experience is all about. It's actually engagement. And you know, we try and get everybody to care and be curious about each other. So if you care about someone and you're curious about them, you'll ask them questions, and that is the best way to engage a guest. It's the best way to engage anybody you meet, is asking questions about themselves. And I think it's a very simple technique, and it actually works with everybody. You know, we all want to be asked questions about ourselves. You know, that's the most important thing. And you know, and it becomes a two-way street. It starts a dialogue. You know, whether it's a dialogue between associates, or it's a dialogue between our associates and the guests, or ourselves. You know, and that for me is what's helped us bring our retention levels, you know, to a really high level at the moment. Because you're right, you know, you train your associates. You want them to, you know, you have Mandarin speaking associates, you know, Hindi speaking associates, or whoever it happens to be. You're training them in the different cultural aspects and of what you need to deliver to your guests. And if you don't hold on to them, you've got to start that whole process over again. It's an incredibly expensive thing to do. And so, you know, for a very minimal amount of investment and a lot of training and a lot of engagement, you know, that pays rewards that you're never going to get by just constantly turning over your team, you know, because you just lose that contact. And we've got, well, you know, we're very fortunate to have a very high repeat level of guests. Dubai's got a high repeat level of guests. I believe, for instance, the Saudi market, I think it's 77% return to Dubai year in, year out. That's huge. You know, they want to come back and know they're going to get the same level of service time after time. And the only way you're going to do that is retaining the people you've trained up to look after them.
We'll look at the customer experience and the customer journey in just a second. We started a bit late, so I think we can squeeze another 5 minutes, can't we? Great. I got permission to carry on for another 5 minutes. Does anybody have a question so far from the audience? I really want to encourage you to ask some questions or even refute some of the things that the panel is saying. I know that some of you are dying to ask. No? You're going to leave it all to me? All right, let's talk about the customer experience then, just for one moment. The customer experience starts from when they contact their agent or when they contact your hotel or outlet, whether they're from India, China, or everywhere else, with the destination of Dubai in its sights. The number of people who are trained in hotels to be able to deliver the packages that you're creating, whilst you are talking about training, is very, very important. In reality, there isn't enough of that going on, is there, in the hospitality industry? Let's have a show of hands here if you think in the audience that we need to have more training for our staff to be able to not only give the customer service and satisfaction that they're looking for, but also to be able to retain the staff by making them feel that they're contributing to a product and service that we're selling. Let's show of hands. There's not enough training? The question is not enough. Is there not enough? Hands up. There's not enough. All right. It's a show of hands. Some people are very shy, but there's a show of hands there saying not enough. We need to do more. The customer experience in Dubai is not as good as we think it is. It's not up there at all. I can give you some examples if you want. But before I give the examples, let's ask Filippo about the sort of training that he thinks we ought to have in our industry to increase the benefits of the products and services that we offer for our customers.
It's all about preparation, in my opinion, and the customer experience starts from the moment people come off the plane, and that is, whether we like it or not, it is the first impact. So my suggestion is, if you're going after big markets, you need to start putting some visible and tangible changes. So meaning, even in the airport, get signage in Chinese or in Hindi. Could be temporary, doesn't have to be permanent. Because I understand you cannot have every single language under the planet, is in an airport. So you need to start getting that kind of communications. And the same goes at operational level. In your hotel, don't assume that because it's written in English, everybody understands it. Exactly it. It could be temporary. But above all, I'm going back with the private sector, and a very simple example, and you can see it's not rocket science what I'm saying. In Dubai, one of the largest construction companies is China State. I reckon, and this is a guess, and I might be totally wrong, but kind of estimate, the China State produced more than 6,000 room nights in Dubai alone, in Dubai hotels. Go back to your hotels. How many of your sales managers try to knock at the door of China State? And don't forget, there's another 65 companies like that, owned by the government of China, and they are the biggest companies worldwide, billions of dollars each. So the training that they need is to do real businesses, not sitting at the desk. When I started my career in '93 and then progressed into global sales, there was the old fashion of sales strategic path. You write down who's your clients and do the homework. Who is the secretary, who's the CEO, what they're doing, what they're not doing, how much money, who owns them, and all of that. There are plenty of vice presidents out there of sales and marketing. Ask them, do you know your top 10 clients inside out? They have no absolute idea. Why do I say this? Have I got a magic stick? Absolutely not. Unfortunately, people pay us lots of money to do asset management, and they pay me top dollars, and I'm very happy about it. And we end up increasing the bottom line of hotels. And I'm an hotelier by family, myself, by education, by profession. It breaks my heart to go into a hotel and be able to deliver more money than the actual team. Not because we're better, not because we're different. We haven't got. It's just because we go back to basic. We don't assume anything. We don't assume anything. We just respect the people that invested huge amount of money to, try to make money for them. Another example, and it's the same, whether it's Chinese or India. How many people complain about OTAs, Booking.com, oh, too much money and this and that. How many people have tried to upsell me one room booked via Booking.com to offset commission and make the flow through? They don't even understand what a flow-through analysis is, and they are general managers. That's what scares me the most, because I chose this to come as a passion, as a career. There are people out there that pretend to be, and it's just a job. These people are ruining our industry. So the training that people need is the basic hospitality management, not rocket science.
Okay, Filippo, thank you very much indeed. That really sums that up. And I'm afraid we do have to summarize now, simply because of the time factor. I'd like to just ask all of our panelists if they can, it doesn't matter if it's a commercial, I don't mind, it can be a plug. But are we ready? Are we ready for this new challenge? Have we got the ducks in the row, to use that phrase? Are we okay with our customer experience protocols? Are we okay with our products to address the current market and the new market? Let's start first with you, David. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, are we perfect? No, by a long way, not by a long way. There's a lot more we could do, and I think there's a lot more that we can do and we will do. I mean, Filippo's right. I mean, the public sector here has laid on a huge amount of activities that we could all participate in order to do more in these markets. You know, are we all participating? No, we're not. And you know, that goes from whether it's trade shows and trade fairs, which are open to hoteliers just as much as the tourism shows and road shows are. So there is an awful lot going on out there. We could certainly do far more. I'd like to think we're doing quite well at it at the moment. You know, certainly if I look at the geographical origins of business in our company, it's pretty healthy. But yes, there's certainly more we could do for sure.
Deborah, you're working your fingers to the bone at the moment, launching new products and a new hotel. I'm sure you've got all the products in the right place, but is there still more that you believe that we can do as a group of people in the industry to better promote what we're doing in our hotels and Dubai itself from the private sector point of view?
Well, I just think, you know, we never stop learning. You know, once we stop learning, we're too comfortable. And I think, you know, I personally set out to learn something every day and to be able to share that experience with the team. So for me, you know, you learn every day, you develop every day. And I think once you stop doing that, then maybe it's time to stop.
Aziz, you were very vocal about the things that you are doing within your hotel chain. What's your view? Can you do more?
By all means. I mean, like Deborah said, the day you stop learning is the day you stop growing. So you have to continuously play this role of looking within and looking outside. You need to keep your focus on what your core is, what you do best, and at the same time remain agile and responsive to the changing environment. Digital technology is a disruptor that didn't exist 20 years back, or maybe even 10 years back. 10 years later, it could be a different way how people consume hospitality products. So while your core promise of sincerely caring for the guest will not change and must not change as a hospitality company, your responsiveness to what's happening outside the environment has to be, you have to be on the ball for that. And you have to always play this balancing role to continuously cater to changing needs.
Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Arabian travel market, thank you very much indeed for coming to our session today. And I would encourage you to read Filippo Sona's report. It's full of statistics and very interesting information. If you haven't got a copy of that, you can download it, and I think we can give some website details about how you can download that. You can come and see me afterwards. I'll get the website details for you and let you know how to find it. But now I'd like you to give a round of applause, please, to Filippo Sona, Director, Head of Hotels for MENA for Colliers. Azim Narain, he's the Associate Vice President Development for Taj Hotels, Resorts and Palaces. Deborah Duga, Managing Director, Duke's Collection. And David Thompson, Chief Operations Officer for J8 Resorts and Hotels. Let's hear it for our panelists, ladies and gentlemen. And thank you very much for joining us